Hi everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. I'm here tonight with not very good news, as usual. For fiscal conservatives, none of this news is good. We're going to be talking tonight quite a bit about the state of the town's financial affairs. Changes every week. Part of the reason for the change is because a lot of information is coming out into the open after a lot of years. Now, we've had some very, very interesting people in this town point this out over the last year or two, that we were heading in this direction. Number one, I did write a mock obituary back in July and told them that the 20% or so mill rate increase we were going to get was going to really be a problem for the town. At that time, we didn't expect that it would be compounded by the devaluation of the properties in our town by an average of 18–20% or so. But one way or another, we are going to get a hefty mill rate increase. Everybody will be paying more for less, and I've got a slide I'm going to show you later about that. Marcia Sterling, MIT Wellesley graduate, and a Chicago Business School graduate in finance, Wall Street veteran, been retired for quite a few years at a very young age. John Gauger, who's got a long history in this town, was born here and raised here, went to various schools and colleges and got his master's from UConn, was in the computer industry for many years and retired at a fairly young age and has been very active in our town. He's been chairman of the Democratic political party. He's been, I guess they call it the town Democratic Town Committee, president of that, chairman of that. He was a selectman. He was mayor of the town during difficult times, similar to what we're going through now, from what I gather. And he was a president of the Winchester Taxpayers Association that his father founded many years ago. He also had a program on Channel 13 that I saw many years ago when I first came back and retired. And then you've got James Roberts, very bright person, very mathematically inclined, a lot of business orientation, Oxford University graduate with many honors. He's worked in England helping to turn a lot of their companies around that were owned by the government, and they were trying to, Maggie Thatcher and all, were trying to pass them off onto normal business people, which was hard to operate in then because the taxes were high. It was very close to extreme socialism at the time, and it was very difficult to get anybody to take the jobs. That's one of the reasons I went over there to help. I was given that opportunity at ICL, International Computers Limited. Stayed there 7 years. James is very smart. He retired young at the age of 32 after working on Wall Street, working first in England and then on Wall Street. Very highly respected. He's on the Board of Education. He's also a Democrat. So fiscal conservatism knows no bounds. We have people for all suasions that think more fiscally conservative. I showed you on a prior program the normal distribution curve, and we have people on both ends, but most people are in the middle of the curve, and they try to think rationally about these things. So now what I want to do is move on a bit and start talking about the problem we have in this town. The problem is a financial problem. We've all been warned about it over the years. We know that this problem is serious. There were several meetings over the last few weeks that compounded the problem. It seems to me that every time we have a budget workshop or a selectman budget public hearing, new problems crop up that make the fiscal problem even worse than it was before. We're in deep now. We're in deep. I want to talk a bit now about the projected debt for fiscal year 2012 through 2013. That'll be over that quarter. The last final quarter deficit will be at the end of June. That's when this fiscal year ends, fiscal year 12-13. Now on March 19th, my wife's birthday, 2013, we were told at a selectman meeting by the town manager that the final quarter deficit would be zero, that there was no deficit. There were many questions asked about it, but the answer was always, no, you don't understand, this will be zero. Nobody believed that, of course, because some very, very numerate people with math and business degrees, MBAs and such from across party lines, have been doing the math, and they thought differently. They thought it might be more like $3 million by the time we were done. Of course, they were limited by the information they had available at the time. So on March 19th, we were told by the town manager at a select meeting that the deficit would be zero. Now, just one day later, not a month, not a year, not a week, but one day later, at the budget workshop held by the town manager with the finance board and selectmen, and it was a public meeting. I went to it, sat and listened. We were told, no, it won't be zero. The deficit at the end of the fourth quarter, the end of June 2013, will be $1,800,000. That's what we were told one day later. Nobody believed that, of course, because the people who had been doing their numbers and trying to convince some of the town management and the selectmen and finance board that the number was going to be bigger than that. But nobody would listen. You probably saw them showing up at the selectmen meetings during public comment, especially Marcia and James and John Gauger, warning the people about the problems to come with this debt issue. The debt issue was also covered, of course, on James Roberts and John Gauger's Channel 13 television program, weekly program, and it was covered by the fiscal conservatives on the selectmen and finance board, Glenn Albanese and Ken Fracasso. They kept asking questions. What will the debt be? Where is the cash flow information? When will we know this information? And the answer was always, well, we'll get it to you. We'll get it to you. We'll get it to you. Well, we never really seemed to get it. Information didn't show up. Now, I do understand that the town hall is in a turmoil now, has been for months, 6 months or so. It's in a turmoil. And new information is being uprooted every day. Now, my own view is that the town manager, behind closed doors if necessary, with the town attorney and whoever else, auditors, whoever he needs, should keep all 7 finance board members up to date with all information at the same time. There is a distrust in this area. There is a distrust in this area. When articles are written for newspapers, when information is disseminated to newspapers without all the selectmen and finance board members hearing it first, is not a good way to build teamwork. I've mentioned that on this program before. So my main criticism of the town manager would be that he needs to keep everybody up to date every day if necessary with modern methods of communication, so they all know exactly the same thing. And one party or one faction or one person or one rumor or whatever isn't different than what he's telling those people on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, etc. Now, a little more of that has happened recently, but not enough. We'll talk, I hope, a bit more about that on this program tonight. Now, 3 days later, the town manager in a newspaper account and the editor of a local paper on March 23rd, 2013, raised the number by $100,000 to $1,900,000 deficit for the last quarter of this year ending in June. July 1st is when the new fiscal year 2013-2014 begins. And it looks like we're going to be going into that next fiscal year with quite a deficit. Now this year, when we went into our fiscal year 12-13, we carried a deficit in the budget of about $713,000. And the budget was first put together. So here we go again. A few days later, boosting it up another $100,000, which was a surprise to all when they read the paper. That should not be. Things should not come out in the paper before all the finance board members and selectmen are aware of the problem and the number and what's going to be done about it. I've always been a proponent of having a press officer for the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen, so that all views could be expressed in a uniform, positive manner for the town. But if you get to the point where one party's running to the press all the time, infiltrating the press, nobbling the press to get their viewpoint across, especially if they're in the majority on the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Board, after the meeting, before the meeting, talking to the camera during the meeting, anything they can do. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons they don't like public comment to be at the end of the meeting in our town, because then they won't get the last word. They won't be able to ramble on with their opinions without the audience getting a chance to question that and reply. And the answer the mayor gave one day was, well, you can come back next meeting 2 weeks later if you want to ask a question about what we said after public comment closed. Well, by then, most people have forgotten about the whole thing and are pretty fed up with it, and then are dealing with the problems of that week, that day, that last couple of weeks, and the future. So that doesn't work too well. Now, I'm on for ensuring that public comment is always done in a balanced, positive, polite manner. And nobody would argue with that. But the attempt to stifle public comment and to have the last word, even though it is your meeting, is not a good way to build teamwork, build public relationships, and get everybody pulling in your direction. So anyway, 3 days later, the town manager and the editorial in the newspaper account, if I remember correctly, March 23rd, 2013, we're going to put another $100,000 on our end-of-year debt that we'll have to carry forward into the next 5 to 10 years, one way or another. I'll do a program next week, Getting Things Done, which will, I think it's going to be a Planning for Success program next Tuesday from 6 to 7, which will be my new time slot. I'm going to talk a bit more about that, the dangers we face going forward. Now, 12 days later, can you believe this? 12 days later, at the public hearing on April 4th, 2013, that's where we went to the 2.5-hour public hearing at the Pearson Middle School. It was recorded, and it was shown now a couple days ago on Channel 15, Charter Channel 15 at 7 o'clock. I'm sure it'll be repeated. It will also be up on their website, www.ctv13.net. You'll be able to watch it there if you have the capability. And you can watch it on your computer. You don't necessarily have to have Charter television. You could get on the internet, go to that website, click on the program, and watch it right on your computer. Keep your eye on the Charter Channel 15 listings over the next week or so, and you may see it play there again once or twice. 2.5 hours long. Very informative program. Not all positive by any means, because we're not dealing with a very, very happy subject here. So going into the next fiscal year, as of today, and we still got a couple months to go, we could get more bad news in the next couple months. There might be some good news too. But we're going to be $3,200,000 in the hole after just having lost 18% or so of our property values. And that's why I played the funeral march tonight. There are a lot of things around here are starting and continuing to die. I played that march as a warning to everybody, as I did with my mock obituary in July. Told them to speed up things, get going with the budget. Wasn't going to be a pretty sight when that mill rate was going to go up 20% or so. Well, now we're there. The mill rate will be going up, but we're in much more debt than we ever thought we would be. So now that we know we have the $3,200,000, and I did check with the town manager yesterday by email, and he said, yes, that's still the number. We're all asking ourselves, what next? Because we have a lot of experience in business, and we know that there's always something. Our last budget, this year's budget that we're in now, we had a lot of bad information in that budget. We said so last year. We asked you, the fiscal conservatives did, to turn that zero budget down, zero increase budget down, because we didn't think it was really a zero increase budget. And we thought that there was some padding in that budget, which turned out to be true, to the best of my knowledge, from what I hear in the meetings. We overemphasized the revenue that we thought we were going to get in, and we're probably $1 million less than we thought we were going to get this year. Maybe a little less than that. Maybe a little more than that by the time the year is over. I asked a few questions of people in town. And they kind of thought that that revenue was overestimated just to get to a zero budget, so that we wouldn't have to take a cut in the budget. Also, the expenses were underestimated. So we're a bit over on expenses. The most well-known side is the police overtime, of course. We're about 150,000 over on overtime, the overtime budget. Now, I'm not casting any stones there, but we all know that we should be budgeting properly for these kind of things. And when we budget properly, we probably have to give the police the overtime money and other people necessities they need, and look for areas where we have plenty of inefficiencies. My greatest example is the school system. I can't say it enough. Every time I go around the country, I ask people how many superintendents they have for the number of people in their town, number of residents, number of children. They say one. There are one or two that are similar to our Gilbert situation that might have two, but not many. How many computer systems do we need in this town? The answer is one. I can tell you, I'm a computer man. How many purchasing areas? How many receiving areas? How many maintenance areas? There's a lot that can be improved here. Past town managers knew it but couldn't get it done because there is a reluctance, a great reluctance, to reduce the education budget even if it's very, very inefficiently run as it is today. Now, my next program, scheduled for Saturday at 5:30, I'm going to be talking about the ECS rules and the minimum budget requirement rules. So it'll be a program dedicated to information about the school. I'm not saying it's all going to be exactly perfect, but I'm just trying to get across on the next program, getting things done on Saturday, enough for you to be able to understand at least the structure of it and how complex it can be, and maybe even do some research of your own, and then join in the effort to try to make the whole town with the school systems run more efficiently. And to do that, you don't need to build a new school. You need to use an evolutionary manner. First, integrate things, and over time, once we're on our feet again and not as heavily in debt with the inability to get any funding at a reasonable interest rate, if at all, then we can think about a new school. But we keep trying to, with the Board of Education, put the cart before the horse. And we don't want to put the cart before the horse. We want to get the efficiencies first and then get the new school. If indeed we ever do, we may get to the point where we don't want any school at all, but to go do vouchers and things to get the kids into other schools in the area, or merge with another school. All the schools have a trouble merging and dropping schools because they don't want to see their minimum budget requirement reduced. You'll look in at Saturday, watch that program, and then form your own conclusions afterward. But we'll be going to talk a lot of that for the next 10 years. Because over time, the number of students is going down. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way we can be more efficient. In plenty of areas around this whole system, we can be more efficient. But we should be concentrating on that rather than trying to keep the budget chunking along each year at the cost of inflation. That won't get us out of this pickle. In order to get out of this pickle, we need to reduce, restructure, and grow our tax base. Until we get to the point of equilibrium where we can live on the average increase in the cost of living from year to year. We're far from that now. 3.2 million in debt at the end of the quarter. We're in now, the end of the fiscal year. So when I say what next, there was a public hearing on April 4th of 2013. I went to that. That'll be shown on television. Matter of fact, it's already been shown once on channel 15. It'll be shown a couple more times, and it'll be up on the website. Last 2.5 hours. I might have mentioned that earlier. But at that public hearing, we did hear about the $3.2 million for the end of the fiscal year in debt. But in addition, at that public hearing, where a lot of questions were asked and a lot of answers given and other answers not given, we were told that about $4,600,000 has been moved around over the years. In the towns, that should be towns there, I left the T off, sorry about that. In the town's numerous accounts. So the town manager mentioned at this public hearing on April 4th that we were going to be 3.2 million shortfall for this fiscal year. 3.2 million in the hole. He then mentioned that 4.6 million had been moved around in the town's numerous accounts. We have, 40, 42 accounts at the time for the town, probably done for good reason. We don't know all the details right now. That's one of our problems. We don't know all the details right now. So this 4.6 million had been moved around in the town's numerous accounts. And that's something that they don't talk much about because they're still working on it and don't have all the information. Now, they may be talking about this behind closed doors with the finance board and the selectmen. The finance board / selectmen may know more about this than we, the public, know now. And the answer is it will all come out over time. Sooner or later, we will all know. On the other hand, they're asking us to vote on a very, very difficult budget without having any of these answers. Doesn't make any sense to me. If you saw my previous programs where I did the triangles and show you how to do a proper budget versus an improper budget, what we tend to still be doing even now with this budget, you'll understand what I mean. So 4.6 million has been moved around over the years in the town's numerous accounts, say 40 to 42, could be less, could be more. There are rumors that they're consolidating some of these accounts. Whether that's good or bad remains to be seen. We'll have to see exactly what they're doing. These are just rumors we hear. A lot of rumors going around because some people are told things that other people aren't. And it's a bit like an orchestra. An orchestra goes through a lot of practice. Everybody has to play their own instrument in a symphonic manner. if the whole orchestra isn't playing the right way, you'll have a cacophony of sound like a boule in France orchestra, Pierre Boulez. So the orchestra leader, who at the time is the town manager, has to orchestrate all this in such a way that all instruments and all the people and everybody involved is playing together. Now, sometimes I think he's doing that. Other times I have my questions about it. First thing I would do if I were him is I'd stop my newspaper column, get rid of that right away, because they're offensive at times to some of the members on the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and other commissions in town. They tend to favor certain people in town over other people in town. And being too close to the newspapers doesn't help either, because it spoils the song that the orchestra is trying to play. Now, in an orchestra, if a person's always off key and not on the right beat usually, and can't sort of fit in with the everybody else, then the orchestra leader has to change that, either improve the person or remove the person. But the orchestra leader in the end is responsible for the concert, and whether it's good or bad, whether the audience approves or doesn't approve, whether the taxpayers approve or don't approve. And right now, the taxpayers have serious concerns about all these problems, the 3.2 million problem, the 4.6 million problem, because they're being asked to pay more taxes. Water and sewer, water 20%, sewer 30%. Property taxes, on average of 18, 19, 20% or whatever it turns out to be, to make up for the management mistakes that have been made over the last 10 years by some of the very selectmen and Board of Finance members that are still there serving the town after all these years. Now, they don't want to face up to that problem. They don't want to face up to that ownership, because they'd rather blame the Water and Sewer Commission or the past financial director or the other political party or whatever. Now, how do you come up with a good orchestration when that's happening? The past doesn't kind of matter here now. The future is what's at stake. The future is at stake, the future of our town. Jobs of our residents. Businesses that'll have to pay the higher taxes, water and sewer and other property taxes. There's also a great concern by some people as to why the water and sewer people have to pick up the tab for the town not budgeting properly for its bond, interest, and principal over the years. It is the Selectmen and Finance Board that are finally responsible here. They must take ownership. They must admit their involvement. And they must get on to fix the problem for the taxpayers, residents, future generations in our town. Now, we've got a bit of a house of cards here with this budget coming up. Fiscal year 13-14. There'll be a public hearing on that budget on May 6th. So can you think it's a Monday at 6 p.m.? Check your calendars on that. Now, it's been my experience in our town that people don't bother to go to these public hearings because they're usually packed with people from one side or the other. And whoever gets the most people there, and this is democracy, they get the final word at these public hearings. Now, they budget annual town budget meetings. They'll also pick a day for the referendum. People will get up and speak. Nobody will listen. People will promote their own agendas. Not many people will listen. Most people go there with a mind already made up. And on this one, the people who want this budget to pass for their own political reasons, not necessarily good financial reasons, because it's not a good budget, it's a bad budget, because it doesn't address our future and preparing for our future. Matter of fact, it doesn't even help much for the present because of these big burdens we're carrying. You've heard over the months on how bad our infrastructure is and how badly our police need things and how our fire department also needs things, and goes on and on and on. Town itself needs things. Everybody needs things. But in this environment, with this mess we have, nobody trusts anybody. Nobody wants to give any money to the town because they're afraid they've been misspending it, misallocating, misbudgeting it, misreviewing it, mismanaging it for the last 10 years or more. I suspect it goes all the way back one way or another to the 60s when we changed the form of government from a mayoral form of government with a decent finance board and all to the present form of government we have, town manager run government we have today. So nobody's happy. I think the biggest question I get asked when I walk, and when I do that every day, I talk to a lot of people and they talk to me, is, Brian, why don't we just pass the budget? Well, passing a budget, if it's no good, if it's a bad budget, if it doesn't help you plan for the future, it isn't a good budget. You shouldn't pass it. But if we turn now to the next slide, we ask ourselves, what is fiscal year 12 and 13 going to bring? We still have 3 months to go here, and we still don't have the state police investigation finished. We're still trying to find out where the $4.6 million came from and went. Other people may know, but we don't. We still may be have less revenue in the next 3 months, although they're projecting. We don't trust their projections anymore. They don't project very well. Can't blame it all on others. Remember, I once said on this program, when you're in the job for 3 months, it's yours. Can't blame it on the past anymore. Now, our present management tends to blame the past all the time, even though they've been in much longer than 3 months, closer to 2 years. If they worked in a responsible business, they'd be out by now. Businesses don't like to carry people until failure. They like to find out, no surprises, find out as soon as they can on the triangle that I showed you a few weeks ago and deal with the problems. That's what we should be doing now. Getting all the cards on the table and dealing with the problems, not blaming the past. When people blame the past, it's a condemnation of themselves. Now, the other thing that we keep hearing from people is, especially the mayor and some of the liberal selectmen, well, we all know the problem. Where are all your solutions to the problem? Give us your solutions. Well, first of all, they don't know the problem. Most of them never ran a business. They don't understand the problem. They don't understand the depth of the problem. They're overwhelmed now by the 3.2 million and the 4.7 million. And they're striking out. They're trying to scare the people in town into voting for this bad budget. Because this is an election year. And if they win, good. They'll have to face all the problems in the future. But if they lose or don't run, somebody else will be stuck with it. So their attitude now is, well, let's get this bad budget passed. That's Brian's opinion. And then we'll see what the elections bring. And let's hope we get elected again. And then we'll see if we can sneak by after that. Maybe some miracle will happen. Maybe our rich uncle will leave us 3.2 million and 4.7 million. Maybe something like that will happen. I don't know. But I wouldn't plan on it. Because I don't think it will happen. And you know from my program where I talked about the triangles, we need to face the problems now. Let's go in. Let's get with the Board of Education, where all the money is, 64% of our budget. The town's about 30% or so. Let's go in there and work together with the state. Watch my next program, and you'll see that there are opportunities. Will it be easy? No. Just like it wouldn't be easy for you to go out and double your salary overnight. Or get a big bonus overnight for no performance. You wouldn't be able to do that. Try going to the bank with a lousy credit rating and see how much you can borrow against your house, or for a new house, or for a business. They're tough. They're even tougher now since the greatest recession since the Great Depression. Now, I'm worried about Beyond. I'm so worried about Beyond that I personally will vote no on the next budget. Unless some information comes up in the next 3 months that changes my mind, which I don't think it will. I'm concerned because at the last budget public hearing on April 4th, Selectman Perez says, and I paraphrase here, I can't remember the exact wording, and you don't have the ability to look at the program until it's on TV again, but she said there's much worse coming. We all know when certain information comes out into the public, it will not be good information. So they know something. These selectmen and finance board members know something, or at least some of them, that we don't know. Or Selectman Perez wouldn't have made that statement. Now, I personally think she shouldn't have made that statement. Any statement that's made should be made as a team by the finance board, all 7 of them, and the selectmen, all 7 of them, with the town manager leading the chorus. But if they don't trust each other, and they don't talk to each other, and they don't work with each other, and they're playing politics all the time, one group doesn't want to cut the schools under any circumstances, and they're kind of cahoots with the Board of Education people, or at least the majority on the Board of Education. The other group sees great opportunity in eliminating redundancies between the schools and between the schools and the towns. That's all great stuff. So we have great, great reason to distrust and vote this budget down. Force them to come up with a good budget that helps us bootstrap ourselves out of this horrible financial situation we find ourselves in now. And don't make the taxpayers and the water and sewer people pay for the finance board and the and the Board of Selectmen's mistakes over the last 10 years. The auditors have been warning them about these problems, but they, for one reason or another, didn't read the reports, didn't understand reports, didn't want to do anything, couldn't find a reason to do anything. And were led along, like lemmings, over the cliff. Now we'll talk a bit about proposed mill rate increases and just to get even with the devaluation in the property, we're going to need 4.77 mills. We're going to need 4.77 mills just to get even. Now, to make up for the past and current budgeting errors of management, we don't seem to be getting our slides turned over here, but to make up for the past and current budgeting errors of management, we will need an additional mill. We'll need an additional mill. So that means we will need 5.77 mills. So for the total, we'll need 4.77 mills plus 1.00 mil that they want to put in to the fund balance to help pay for the debt and whatever else. Doesn't seem like it's anywhere near enough. At the public hearing, the superintendent of schools asked the town manager how long we're likely to be in this position with flat school budgets. And he said, well, probably 2 to 3 years. I stood up, and you'll see it on TV, and I said, more like 5 to 10 years. And I've checked with other financially astute people in town with them master's degrees in business and great business experience, and they kind of agree with me, somewhere between 5, 7, something like that. So the mill rate is going to go up 5.77 mills unless something changes in the next 3 months or the budget gets turned down, or 22.70%. Now, I've been criticized for the last budget race when I said the mill rate would probably go up about 21%. Well, I was right, of course, because we did the math. Now, we were helped out a little by the property tax, by the property values going down, but that really is not good. So we're going to have an increase of 22.70 for 80% of your last property value on average. So your property values on average, not everybody, on average, some more, some less, have gone down about 80%, could be a little less, maybe a little more. So the house you used to have on the top there, that was 100% of value. Now the house now is shrunk to 80% of value. But you're still going to be paying this 22.70% increase in the mill rate. Now, in a normal business, of course, you would cut that back. So what we need to do is, now we need to speed things up. We need to go find these inefficiencies in our town and school system and elsewhere, and we need to vote no until all of the facts are known to all. Vote no until, that's my view, you do whatever you want to do, but I say let's vote no until all the facts are known to all. We're months away from that, if not years. Now, on the next program, I will have a slide which shows you how to calculate your own tax for your house. I've got it up there now. We don't have time to talk about it, but next program I'll go over it in detail. So watch on Saturday at 5:30 p.m., Channel 13. Thank you very much. See you on Saturday.
no place like home.
Wake up, honey.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no...
Dorothy, dear. It's Aunt Em, darling.
Oh, Auntie Em, it's you.
Yes, darling.
Hello there. Anybody home? I just dropped by because I heard the little girl got caught in a big... Well, she seems all right now.
Yeah, she got quite a bump on the head. We kind of thought there for a minute she was going to leave us.
Oh.
But I did leave you, Uncle Henry. That's just the trouble. And I tried to get back for days and days.
There, lie quiet now. You just had a bad dream.
Sure. Remember me? Your old pal, Huck? Me? Hickory? You couldn't forget my face, could you?
But it wasn't a dream. It was a place. And you were there.
Oh.
But you couldn't have been, could you?
Oh, we dream lots of silly things when we...
No, Aunt Em. This was a real, truly live place. And I remember that some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful. But just the same, all I kept saying to everybody was, I want to go home. And they sent me home. Doesn't anybody believe me?
Of course we believe you.
Oh, but anyway, Toto, we're home. Home. And this is my room. And you're all here. And I'm not going to leave here ever, ever again. Because I love you all. And, oh, Auntie Em, there's no place like home.